Our panel of experts includes Marie Asano, partner at the European Circular Bioeconomy Fund, Carole, Bingley, technical specialist at RSSL, Przemek Obloj, Chief Investment Officer at Blue Horizon, as well as Shiri Ranot, Global Marketing Director and Brand Partnerships at Dog Smart Talk. So I suppose we can welcome them, or almost welcome them, at this stage this morning. Hello, very good morning to you all. Let's welcome them with applause, please. I can only hope I haven't mispronounced any of the names too badly, and our stage is yours. Enjoy the discussion.
Thank you very much. I think, is this active now? Okay, good. Yeah, I think we've all agreed we're just going to mispronounce one another's names, and that's just part of it. So, first of all, interesting topic, food as medicine, and how we can innovate in that area. And I very much like the fact that we're focused on actually getting something practical and useful out of this. So the objective is to get something really useful for everyone. I think we're really going to address two things here. One is, what do we mean by food as medicine? It's easy to say the words, but what do we really mean? And secondly, how does innovation actually get that into the hands of people? It's nice to have an interesting concept, but what do we actually do? So maybe first some quick introductions, brief introductions. Just for myself, I run a startup that changes behavior, unhealthy behaviors, certainly largely related to nutrition and such, long-term engagement, and it works, so I'm happy about that. If you could each introduce yourselves, and then just briefly where you fit into the ecosystem of food as medicine might be a good way to start. And then I have my cheat sheet of questions, although they're in my head as well, but I'm going to use this also. Please.
So hi, my name is Marie. I'm partner at the European Circular Bioeconomy Fund. We are a 300 million private fund, investing in not only just food, but ag, food, industrial, biotech, and packaging. And I'm on this panel because I have a portfolio company that is in the space.
Hi, my name is Przemek Obloj. I was born here in Warsaw, but have lived the last 25 years in London. I co-run a firm called Blue Horizon. We invest across the sustainable food ecosystem, from agtech through food tech to bioeconomy. And food as medicine has been a big theme for us, as more and more of the opportunities came on this intersection of healthcare and food. So very excited to be here and happy to be back in Warsaw for once, and look forward to the discussion.
Thank you. Hello, everybody. My name is Shiri Ranot, and I'm from a company called Incredo. It's just named it Incredo. It was due to talk up until a few days ago. What we do is we have a sugar-based sugar reduction solution. So what we do is we take sugar, we structure it in a different way so it dissolves faster, it reaches the sweet taste receptors quicker, and because of that, we're able to get to a significant reduction in sweet products, up to 50%. So in a way, we help healthify products. We reduce sugar. We try to think, but put better for you ingredients such as fibers instead. And this is mass market products, so everyday products like chocolate, sweets, sugar, confectionery. So we healthify them. And that's why I'm here. Thank you for having me.
Hi, I'm Carole Bingley. I'm technical specialist at RSSL. We provide analytical services and product development services to the food industry, working very much in the nutritionally modified area and plant-based and vegan product development over the last few years.
Great, excellent. And I think it's clear why we have the right people to have this conversation, because there are at least two sides of it, two important sides, I think, which are the research that's being done, the innovation that's being done, and then those who are able to make that innovation happen by looking ahead and putting an investment. My first conversation this morning was with somebody in a startup who has great innovation, but not funding. Probably have to introduce you to them because I promised I would. And then vice versa happening all the time as well. What we'll do is we'll discuss for a bit, but I'm going to leave a little bit of time at the end for questions. So please accumulate those questions and have a chance to ask that as well. I like to start with the obvious, at least that's what my kids always say, which is it's easy to say food is medicine. I think we all have an intuitive understanding of what it is. I don't know that that's the right understanding. I'd love to hear what each of you has to, how you would define food as medicine broadly or in some particular detail. And although I'm going to ask everybody, feel free to disagree vehemently with one of your colleagues and go from there.
Yeah, this is what you get when you sit next to the moderator. You always have to start first. No, I'm joking. Food as a medicine, well, I think the word, says it all. It's basically taking food and making it into something that is beneficial for you. So it is tailor-made. It's not like a pill you pop and the changes are spontaneous. It's long-term dietary changes that have a positive effect on your health. And even better, it's not just overall health, but you can target it for a particular need. Whether that's irritable bowel syndrome, whether that's cognitive function, whether it's muscle health. It goes along the entire spectrum of human health. So it's basically, like I said, not instantaneous, but almost a lifestyle change that you're tailor-making for a particular health need. Oh.
Now I have my own. And look, until fairly recently, I think a lot of that was about disease avoidance. It was about weight loss, about avoiding diabetes, about avoiding cardiovascular issues, and obviously all the oncology-related problems. I think what is very exciting for us is obviously all these are super important, and anybody who has had a brush with any of those will certify that. But the two areas that have emerged fairly recently is a dramatically better, if still incomplete, understanding of the role of microbiome in human health, and therefore the role of personalized nutrition in our overall health, including the cognitive function, and the longevity impact. And so there are some very obvious things. Eating an awful lot of red meat makes you live shorter, simple. But there is an awful lot of other things that we are only scratching the surface. So if anybody here has a personal objective to live until 120, 150. Unfortunately, diet will be a big part of that, of having a shot at least. So I think this is where we're in very early innings. And there's a lot of companies that are specifically focused on longevity, that are getting big investments from folks who have a lot of money and are getting to the stage where longevity becomes important. But I think we are literally just scratching the surface.
So I have to agree with my other two panelists here. For me, food as medicine almost goes back to the basics. I think it's kind of engraved in almost like the most ancient philosophies of, food as medicine. It goes back, ancient philosophies from the East. Again, it just says that you need to eat nutrient-dense foods to avoid acute diseases, right? So eat things that are nutrient-dense to help support your body microbiome to have a better overall health. I do want to point out that, we can't all have kale, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. You also have to focus on like mental health and well-being. So you can't just have, to me, it's about moderation, right? So it's that 80-20 rule where you try to eat healthy, but also find a little, room for indulgence, because you can't just always be good, right? So you need a little bit of that as well.
Yeah, not much to add really, but I think if you think of medicine as prevention or treatment of disease, I think there's a long history of our understanding of how food can prevent disease. So certain micronutrients preventing disease, vitamin C and scurvy, for example. And we've known that for many, many years, but I think the exciting area now is actually treatment of disease and how we can use food to help actually treat disease. And I think that's a really up-and-coming area, and I think certainly the microbiome is going to be a huge part of that.
Actually, that's a great segue to the next question. And Carole, I'm going to start with you just because you triggered it, and also to give Maria a break, which is the distinction between food as medicine, which sounds really cool, and just eating well, which I think, and eating in a healthy manner, which is its own movement, but does it accomplish a lot of the same things? I'm going to make this a three-part question, but you can answer in one part. Is it really essentially the same thing? Do you get a significant boost if you focus on food as a medicine and try to identify specific areas and do that treatment? Or is that really just sort of the icing on the cake, which is a horrible example to use in this conversation? But what's that distinction between food as medicine and just being a healthy eater?
I guess it probably comes down to specificity. So healthy eating is general well-being. If you think about food as medicine, it's more about thinking about a particular condition and how that food can help either prevent or treat that condition. I mean, it's probably not a hard line between the two, but it's really about taking it to the individual, and we all have different needs, and that's, again, something that's becoming more and more evident, and probably linking back to the gut and, everyone's microbiome being different. How we implement that is going to be very interesting because, actually understanding your personal needs and then accessing the right products and the right foods to address those needs is another whole kind of concept that needs further exploration and work to really bring that to the mass market. But that's where I sort of see the difference. It's really whether you're talking about generally feeling well in a day-to-day setting rather than, really focusing on one particular condition.
Rather than hand the same question, if any of you have a differing answer or just complete full agreement with nothing to add, that's fine as well.
I agree. I think it goes in many ways to personalized nutrition, where you have to really kind of work with an individual. So maybe a doctor on one hand if you have an acute condition, and then do the personalized nutrition per individual to combat a specific illness.
So to summarize, I think it's really, there are a lot of words that come up in medicine. So basically diagnosis, right? You have biomarkers that diagnose a particular case. You have prevention and you have treatment. And in a healthy lifestyle, you don't really have that targeting of a particular condition, and all three of these things, so the diagnosis, prevention, and treatment, which are also systematically done in food as a medicine.
Okay, I think you guys have defined it very well, so thank you. Now I understand it better. So then the question is, how do you get that to people? And maybe start on the investment side. What are you investing in? Because that, after some answers, I want to get into how are you going to reach people? Because that kind of level of specificity falls into a similar problem of any other kind of medical treatment. How do you have enough clinicians? How do you get the actual medicine to people? So where are you making your investments to help us solve that problem?
So if I can start at a very general level, the healthcare system, and let me just pick on the US because it's a very well documented one. It's massive. US healthcare is as big as the entire German economy. And secondly, it's just incredibly inefficient. And anybody who's been to a doctor, let alone having a surgery in any country other than Switzerland, will attest to that. But the other thing is really actions-based. So you go to have a treatment, and you pay for them trying to do it. It's not outcome-based. Now, that is actually changing. And it's very difficult to believe it somehow, but that is actually changing. So the moment when we go to outcome-based medicine, when people will be paid for actually delivering a specific health outcome, a lot of the things that we're discussing here become much more easier to fund because the insurance systems, the payers basically, will be suddenly incentivized to prevent diseases as much as treat them, and will be much more incentivized to focus on this kind of ancillary medicine. And you referred to kind of ancient wisdom and kind of Eastern philosophy almost as a guide. Well, there's an awful lot of stuff there that if you read it, you prevent or help treat a lot of diseases. Oncology is a great example. If you have a procedure in Europe, and specifically let's pick Poland, and have a tumor, it gets cut out, that's it. Then we observe. There is the entire dietary aspect of that, which is just another part of medicine, which you will never access in the action-based medicine. But if it's an outcome-based medicine, and recurrence is the key thing that people get paid for, then the obvious thing, you should cut out basically all of animal protein. That's obvious. That's a very simple thing to fix. But I think for the things we're discussing here to get properly funded, obviously we as investors are doing our bit because it's very attractive. We can, these companies can get better pricing, they can generate higher margins, better returns for investors, fine. But it has to have this big seismic shift in how healthcare is paid for. Sorry, long answer, but it's...
It's actually great being from the country you just trashed.
I'll pick on others as well.
Please do, because it's a horrible system, and I deal with it every day because my customers right now are the B2B environment, so I'm dealing with the insurance all the time. And I just had a customer yesterday say to me, I don't want to pay for usage, which I think is a fair thing. I said, well, then why don't we risk share, make it value-based, purely on outcome. And they were thrilled, because if you really deliver a product that works, you should be able to price it in a way that's based on outcomes, as opposed to giving my nickels now, or euros, or whatever currency, and then not worry about the long term. So I completely agree, but most people don't want to do that because that's not how it's paid. It's a huge shift, and it has to shift or it's going to be a problem. Yeah. I have your mic.
Yeah. That's okay. Completely agree. Maybe I'll bring a slightly different angle, because I think our keynote, it kind of relates also to our keynote as well. So we're an ESG fund, meaning that we do investments in the bioeconomy, in sustainable investments. And healthcare is also a point where we say, well, healthcare itself, sick people, means a lot of resources for hospitals, for medicine, for consumables, and it's actually indirectly leading to a lot of greenhouse gas emissions. So not only is the S part of ESG really important for the entire populace to be more healthy, but also indirectly by supporting and investing in these kind of investments that make people healthier or target or prevent diseases, then indirectly you're also, becoming a more sustainable society. And sort of the type of investments that we did, I think, so Neuritas is the company that we invested in, is precise, it hits the nail on the hammer on the nail, wait, which one was it? Anyways, the nail on the hammer. And it's really utilizing food-based proteins, breaking it down into peptides, so proteins are large and peptides are small, and identifying bioactive peptides based off of food-based proteins that have a bioactivity. So whether that's utilized for pre-diabetics in order to regulate their blood glucose levels, whether it's muscle buildup, anti-aging process. So it's like a platform able to basically leverage nature, and they say unlocking nature. So like this philosophy of we actually have everything we need in nature. It's just that we've kind of swerved into a different direction, and hey, let's with all our tools that we have in our current society and technology, let's try to learn a little bit from nature, because the solutions are already out there.
I'm curious for Shiri and Carole, what's happening in your companies that are helping drive that innovation that gets food as medicine out to people so that we actually get a benefit from it?
I can go first. So we are, as a company, so we're a food tech company, right? And we tackle ingredients. And I think there's this evil trinity of high fat, sugar, and salt. We are dealing with sugar, potentially other ingredients as well. But we've all consumed sugar for thousands and thousands of years in the exact same way, so nothing has changed. The way we tackle it is we understood that one of the biggest, hurdles of implementing change is taste. Taste is the number one driver for food purchase decisions. And if you don't deliver tasty food, people might bite once, but they won't bite twice. And we see that as kind of the number one hurdle globally. So the way we took it, or we combat it, is we're taking the real thing. So we're taking sugar, and we're just making it more efficient. And by making it more efficient, you can just use it in everyday products and significantly reduce sugar, which we know causes diabetes and obesity and cardiovascular diseases. There's also, for us specifically, we're talking about ESG, but sugar is it's not a sustainable crop. It's one of the dirtiest crops out there. It's usually burned in massive fires in third world countries after they crop it. So a lot of it is going to waste. And so just making each bite more efficient, you can reduce, the health-wise, you can reduce sugar by up to 50%, but also reduce the crop that's being grown, wasted, tossed, shipped around the world significantly again, and you get the same bang for your buck, meaning it's the exact same taste with no compromise. And so I think for us, it's understanding that if we can reduce saturated fats, salt, and sugar in mass market items, items that hit the shelf that everybody consumes, everyday children consume. They're super sensitive to taste. They won't have substitutes or alternatives. Those are actually not good for them. They do hurt the microbiome. A lot of studies, Nature magazine just published an article about the use of substitutes, sugar substitutes like stevia, as again, you think that it's a good solution, but it also hurts the microbiome and creates diseases on its own. So for us, it's tackling ingredients as a way of making better products for everybody.
Yeah, so we're providing services. So we're supporting companies that are developing these ingredients, which may have these beneficial effects. So they may be new ingredients to the market and require regulatory approval, so we'll help support those companies through novel foods. We'll also help formulate the ingredients into products because often they may have off taste. So if we think about peptides, they're traditionally very bitter. So trying to make these products palatable and look at stability over shelf life as well. So make sure that your product contains the right level of the active throughout the shelf life of the product so that you can be sure that it will be beneficial when the consumer eats it.
I've got two questions. I may save one for if we have time after asking other folks. But the first one is, what area has the greatest potential to have the greatest effect on food as medicine? And you all may be biased towards what's happening in your companies, which is fine as well. But if you were to maybe look outside that, and you look in terms of investment, where is the greatest effect going to be in terms of getting food as medicine to be most effective? And then the follow-up question I'm going to save for maybe after is, how do we get into the hands of a lot of people rather than just the people who have access to all the cool stuff that's coming down the road? And I won't pick it. I'll let you fight among yourselves to guess who gets to start that.
So since you mentioned that it needs to be pretty democratic, because I was going to go with longevity for the lucky few, but I will go with microbiome. And that's because we really don't understand at all what's happening in our gut. I mean, we're at the very early stages of understanding. And we can make so many positive changes and avoid so many negative ones that then has a follow-on effect across someone's life. And it's only fairly recently that we have understood that it's important, and that's kind of scary. Just like only recently we understood how proteins fault, yeah? And we couldn't forecast how they fault until about 5 years ago. And we think something is natural and therefore we understand it. Absolutely not true. But I think we can fix so many issues in human health by just addressing what's happening in the gut, either through intervention, so getting rid of the bad bacteria, the bad microorganism, or repopulating it with the right ones. I think it almost feels like a must-do move.
I can contribute as well. So I think, yes, microbiome is crucial to study the microbiome. I think to add to that, first of all, I think what would help is education, right? We need to invest in education. It's on the government, regulators to help with that. It's not just for the wealthy, right? It needs to be approachable for everyone. I think another field, unrelated to what we do, of course, is in the area of food as medicine is sleep, and how sleep contributes to your health. And there are so many products out there that support healthy sleeping, different ways. So either through food, meditation, different apps and things that would help with sleep. But I think a lot of the human population is sleep deprived or doesn't have a healthy sleep when we know that it has direct correlation to health and longevity.
Yeah, and just to build on the microbiome side as well, I think something that's key is helping people maintain a healthy weight, because we know that being overweight and obese increases the risk factors for just pretty much every disease we can think of. And we know now that there are links between maintenance of healthy weight and the microbiome, and how do we help to influence the microbiome to encourage that weight. I mean, and it might not be the same weight for every person, but help them to find the right weight and maintain that. And then that comes back to foods as well, and maybe providing products which are less calorie dense, but equally satisfying and helping people to still enjoy their food and not for it to become too medicinal, because that's why we eat. We enjoy our food. It should be a pleasure in life.
I'm going to build on the microbiome, but I'm going to take it one step upstream. And I think it's really being able to identify which biomarkers do what. So really being able to not the microbiome, I think, represents how complex biology is. It's been kind of a pseudoscience, and there's people gasping probably, pseudoscience? But it's been considered by the scientific community almost as a pseudoscience for a very, very long time, although there were established results saying, look, if person A has a crappy diet, then, your health is going to be bad. And the gut influences everything within your body, and it has a very important part, but they could not trace it down really to the mode of action. So mode of action is very pharmaceutical, where you say a particular molecule, a particular, let's say, reaction happens within your body caused by a molecule that docks onto something, and therefore you have an immediate effect. But as this is progressing more and more, people are starting to see, okay, that particular molecule mode of action, okay, and this happens. And I think really getting, food as a medicine going is gathering more of that information, being able to say, hey, I've identified this biomarker in person A, and I know that if food B contains this particular compound, or a consortium of different compounds, most likely this is going to happen in the gut, and therefore this is the health benefit which is going to trigger. And that sort of, how do you almost say it, that validation almost is probably one of the crucial parts which is really going to shift the landscape to really establish itself.
And this is going to be a bit of a plug for the topic of the week right now, but this is where big data and AI really shines. And that's because biology is so incredibly complicated. I've done tech investing for 20 years. It's super easy versus biology. And Drew Andy, who's a professor at Stanford, has this phenomenal quote: it's possible that biology was not optimized for human ease of understanding. And it's unfortunately true. And there are feedback loops and redundancies, and we really don't get it yet. And so this is where we need help, and this is where a lot of compute and a lot of storage. By the way, DNA is much more data dense than the storage options we have, so we'll use DNA for storage fairly soon. This is where it really shines, because we need to understand 10x or 100x what we understand today.
Yeah, there's another panel later today on personalized nutrition, which addresses from a different angle some of these same questions. I think they're going to come up in a little more detail. Just to keep us on time, I want to leave a few minutes for questions from folks in the audience. I could hand you this, or you can speak loudly. How about
I can use mine.
Thank you very much. It was a very interesting discussion. I represent Enzyme Company Ukraine, and we are 15 years very active in healthy nutrition, and we know all the trends. And a business development director of the company, I know what to do. But as a mom in a supermarket, I don't know what to do when my kids are grabbing some junk food into the basket, right? And it was very interesting position of you mentioned that how to take that junk food, make it less accessible for kids, less visible for kids in the supermarket. So it seems to me that with a huge investment in food technology and innovation, there is still a big gap and no synergy between, let's say, retail and all that food industry. What, maybe you know some initiatives, some shifts which are to be expected in the nearest years, how to make the shelves more healthy for the personalized nutrition technically be very easily done in supermarkets every day?
Yeah, I think that's a very, very good question. It comes down to the regulators, and that's where we see a lot of kind of new laws that are being put together, not laws, but more recommendations. So in the EU, for example, there is the Nutri-Score, there is the UK traffic light, the Swedish keyhole. Systems like that exist all over the world. In Latin America, even in the US, they just launched, you have to highlight high sugar items. So to me, it comes to the regulator. I know that Boris Johnson, after COVID, was trying to implement very kind of the extreme is that there are HFSS laws. HFSS stands for high fat, sugar, and salt. where it wasn't allowed to have any commercials, not on social media, not on shelf, not kind of eye level for children. So, it was kind of meant to put all the unhealthy items where kids can't see them, avoid any type of promotion of any sort, to avoid kids kind of wanting to see the Disney princess chocolate and like grabbing it from the shelf. So, you can't expect the companies to do that and not sell their cash cows. They benefit from these items that children are addicted to. I think it's the job of the regulator to help with these types of labelings and to avoid, like putting out commercials and things out for children to help them kind of pull things off the shelf. And it's the duty of the CPG companies, to reformulate their products with better ingredients, reduce the sugar, increase the fiber, reduce the salt, reduce the saturated fat, and formulate products that are indulgent, that are tasty, but not as bad for children specifically. We know that 1 in every 3 children in the world is either overweight or obese. These numbers are growing. It is ridiculous, right? And so I think it's kind of a joint effort of food technologists, so the scientists, the regulators, and the companies to be more responsible in the food they put out there for everybody to eat.
In the interest of time, maybe take one more, and then we'll wrap up so the next group can get up.
Is there anyone who would like to pose a question? Do we have someone? Yeah, let me approach.
Hey, thank you for the great panel. My name is Maciej Tremski from Rośliniemy, and my question is, can we only rely on private investment when it comes to, let's say, lifestyle medicine, lifestyle disease prevention? And do you recall any governmental, institutional means to support innovation in that sphere of, let's say, lifestyle medicine prevention?
So for somebody who is a die-hard private markets can fix it person, it took me a while to realize that. But we pay governments a fee for service. Roughly half of our income goes to government to do stuff on our behalf. We are the clients, and one of the major areas is regulation, or regulating out unhealthy outcomes, because the industry will not regulate itself. Base research is another. And there is stuff that private capital will not pay because our funds have a 10-year period. We cannot invest in stuff which takes 20, 30 years to get there because our investors will not allow us to do that. And so this is where the funding from various state sources, and whether it's endowments or tax money, because government doesn't have any of its own, it plays the role. And this is where cooperating with universities is critically important. We've started a bunch of cooperations with universities, from ETH through Oxford, etc. But there's a number of them. And this is critically important because innovations really take decades sometimes. And what's important is to take something that a scientist or group of scientists develop over decades and help commercialize it. And private capital can help commercialize stuff, but it's very difficult for VC money to fund base research. This is where we as taxpayers absolutely should demand that it gets prioritized as, as a service to community, a service to humanity.
Well, I think we're at the end of the time. Selfishly speaking, I found this helpful, very helpful, 4 different views that wove together, and I hope you all benefited as well. And thank you all for taking the time to share on this topic, important topic. Thank you.